Have you ever met one of those people who just can't be stopped? It's like they're unstoppable.
Yeah, I have.
Me too.
What's their mystique?
Nothing stops these people.
Don't stop.
Welcome to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. You're about to meet some of the most amazing people.
Stop. Don't stop.
They've accomplished their goals despite insurmountable odds. They beat adversity, physical hardship, and traumatic events, and emerged triumphantly. They're people just like you and me, and they're winners. Are you unstoppable? Here's Frankie to show you how.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Mission Unstoppable. I am so excited that you're with me today. Today, we are going on a mission unstoppable with a woman who is a walking example that we are capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for. Was it difficult? Heck yeah. But did she do it? She did it brilliantly. Be prepared. Today, Kelly F Holland is going to take us on a mission, and we will be walking in her shoes for a while. It's not pretty, but it's pretty amazing how she has been able to create a truly inspirational life. Kelly's the author of Primary Gift, Awaken to the Excellence of Your Life's Journey. She's a speaker and a physiotherapist, but her journey to excellence wasn't a cakewalk. In fact, it was riddled with minefields and great challenges. So let's meet Kelly, and she's here to tell us all about it. Hello, Kelly, and welcome.
Oh, good morning, Frankie. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
It really is my pleasure. I'm so excited for everyone to meet you and to know all about you. And I really want to commend you, Kelly, for your perseverance, your courage, and the heart that got you to the pinnacle of excellence that you were able to achieve for yourself. Just absolutely, truly amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go back in time to the beginning, and let's bring our listeners into your story. Let's share with them the beginning, how it, where you came from, so that we can really show them how incredible the ending has become. You were one of 4 siblings, and your mother suffered with schizophrenia, and your father abandoned the family during the first year of your life. Why don't you take it from there a little bit?
Yes, that's true. The situation in my family was, from the beginning, as you stated, from early childhood, the circumstances were incredibly challenging for my mother, for my siblings, for the rest of my family. My mother had severe schizophrenia. It started for her in her late teens. By the time she was 21, she had 4 children.
Wow.
And so when I was born, I was the youngest of 4. Things were already underway, a very chaotic situation for my family, for my mom and my siblings. And for some reason, I had a different journey within my family and within life. I could tell from as young as age 2 that my role in my family, my ability to see things differently, was present. And so this kind of guided me, and it really...
Well, let's stay in your childhood a little bit. Sorry to interrupt you. Let's stay there for a moment, because I want to understand first of all, are all the children from the same father?
Yes.
Okay.
I have, my father actually had 9 children.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my father had 9 children. He was married 3 or 4 times, and he had 9 children.
Wow. And your mom's schizophrenia, how did it, I know that your mom would come in the middle of the night and start hitting, the kids, but not you. How else did her schizophrenia present itself as you were growing up, in like the best and the worst cases?
Yes. Well, violence was the paramount problem. She hit my sister mainly, sometimes my brothers. She would storm into our room at night and start hitting my sister while she was asleep. And I would wake up and intervene on both of their behalf to calm my mom and to calm my sister. My siblings and I were part of a performing duo, so to speak. My grandparents, they saw the talent that we had. My father was a musician. And so my grandparents saw these talents that we had, and they helped to develop these talents, and my mother would get in the way of that. We were called the Holland Four. We were known in Kansas City as the Holland Four. My brother Mickey was the most talented, and my mother would get in the way of this. My grandmother would make costumes for us, and my mom would steal them right before the shows. She would create chaos and discord in a way that it was so traumatic for everybody involved, and there were so many obstacles to overcome because of her influence in this way. The hard part for me was that I could see another side to her. I could see the love that lived within her. I could see her struggle, but yet I could see my siblings struggle dealing with her. So I had a very grand view.
Right.
And so I was very torn because I could see the struggle from all angles. So,
and your grandmother too. I mean, your maternal grandparents pitched in a lot. Like your grandfather took you guys on this traveling the Holland Four, and I guess when he passed on, that was the end of your performance days. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. When he passed on, tragically, when I was 12, he was killed, and so our performances ended. And that was really the beginning of when our family really broke apart. Yeah, okay. The performances were the glue. And when that was no longer, then my mother's schizophrenia really raged, and our family disbanded, so to speak. And we kind of had to find our own way within this chaotic system.
What are the ages? Like, what were the ages? You don't mention that in your book. So
Yes.
you were the baby, but how old was the oldest?
There's not much range. There's about 4.5 years between us.
Okay.
Between all of us. Yeah. So I was say I was 1, my sister was 3, then 4, then 5.
Wow. She had them real quick. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So as your grandmother pitched in, your mom was not compliant with medication. She didn't like to take her medication. But she wasn't institutionalized too many, like her mother didn't want to put her away. What was the reasoning for that?
Yes, Frankie, it was very interesting. My mother, her intelligence was that of genius. Mm-hmm. And so it was a fine line between wanting to help her and allowing her intelligence to help her. And whenever my grandmother would seek help, my mother could turn off her schizophrenia just enough to appear normal.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was interesting how that worked in the beginning. And so there were attempts to help her because clearly there were issues. The violence, it just transcended our entire family. So my grandmother, she tried, my aunts, my mother's sisters really tried to help my grandfather, but my mother was so adamant about not receiving help, it made it very difficult.
When your mom was lucid, did she know that she hit her children? Was she sorry about that, or did she have that emotion?
It's interesting, Frankie, because I would ask her about that, but yet she would never recognize it. It was almost like it was not in her consciousness.
So it's like another person did it.
In a way, yes. Yeah. But I think that may have been selective amnesia, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Now you suffered, maybe the most because you had to stay home. Your brothers and sister, I think 2 of your siblings went to live with other family.
Yes, as we broke apart, it was around age 12 for me. So, that was a close age for my other siblings. So my 2 older brothers, my eldest eventually went into the Air Force. My other brother was taken in by a family friend and who became really his adopted father. And my sister went to live with my grandmother. So I stayed back and stayed with my mom because I truly understood her. Mm-hmm. And my relationship with her, while it was a tremendous challenge, I understood her in a way that I guess I was safe.
A 12-year-old or, understanding, it was very difficult. I mean, it manifested in you in ways you didn't go to school, you cut school, you started to experiment with drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
And that's been something that was got its hooks into you for a long time.
A very long time.
What was the first time? Do you remember the first time you did drugs?
I do. I was 11 years old. And
Wow.
I was 11 years old. And I remember that a friend of mine had some marijuana, and that was the beginning of the end. I had it one time, and I felt so good. And it took me away from such distress that it became literally a lifeline, if you will, because there was such peace within it that it gave me a reprieve.
Yeah, of course.
It did.
I understand that.
Yes.
Oh, so you were 11 years old. You took your first, they say it's not a gateway drug, but it was for you, I guess.
It
Yeah.
was.
And
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just have to say that, and perhaps we'll get into this a little later, but, people hear about drugs and they hear, oh, it's such a bad thing. And for me, it was really a life-saving event to have something that shielded me from such inner chaos and such inner discord and such trauma that it really became a friend that I could turn to for comfort and for a reprieve. And while I know that today there's so many different avenues that we can choose to take into our life to help, but at that stage of the game, where we were in society, in my life, it was truly a gift.
Where did you get the money to get the drugs? You stole it?
Can't remember. I did. Yes, I stole. Yes, sadly to say.
That's okay.
Yep. In those years, whatever I could do, who I was in those days it was about survival. I would break into my neighbors' houses. I was a child of much distress, and there wasn't much the confinement wasn't there that you would find normally in children,
Right.
Not knowing what to do and not what not to do. That wasn't present within me because I didn't have boundaries within my system, so to speak.
I totally get that.
Yes.
We're going to go to a commercial break very soon, but please stick around. Don't go anywhere because Kelly has a lot more to tell us and to teach us. And it's just, I just want to thank you up front again for the courage to speak out so honestly about, something that a lot of people would want to hide. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
I am not the woman I used to be. I'm free with Minister Diane Jones. Monday nights at 10, 9 Central on TogiNet. This is your chance, ladies, to hear stories of hope and healing from someone who's been there. Someone who has fought back from the horrors of incest. Minister Diane's innocence was stolen from her in the land of alcoholism and mental illness, which led to her being emotionally, physically, and sexually abused by her parents. Yet in spite of this trauma, she has gone on to become a successful wife, mother, registered nurse, and minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm not the woman I used to be. I'm Free is a straight-up show to enlighten you and to lighten your load. Do not let the weight of this world or the things that have happened to you control your life. For more on the show and Diane and her book, The Story of Me, email her directly from her show page here on TogiNet. Then, join us for I'm Not the Woman I Used to Be. I'm Free with Minister Diane Jones. Monday nights at 10, 9 Central on TogiNet.com.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
According to the Mayo Clinic, chronic stress can lead to a variety of health and emotional problems, and yoga is a wonderful stress reducer. The core elements of Hatha Yoga are the poses and breathing. The poses, or postures, are a series of movements designed to increase flexibility and strength. The breathing is controlled, and the breath signifies your vital energy. They report that yoga can increase your fitness, reduce your stress, help you manage chronic health conditions, and even help with weight loss. Yoga can aid you in making healthy lifestyle changes necessary to gain control of your eating and drop those excess pounds. If you have ever wanted to try yoga, September is the perfect time because September is National Yoga Month. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond. Visit our Facebook fan page at Fitness Minute with Annette Hammond.
And we're back, and thank you for sticking around. We're here with Kelly F. Holland, author of Primary Gift, Awaken to the Excellence of Your Life's Journey. And we're with 12-year-old Kelly, who started to take marijuana. She was a little bit out, like her external world was really, showing her internal world in that she was, stealing some money and just doing whatever she could to get by, because at this point she was really the guardian in some ways, not the official way, but of her mother, who was suffering with schizophrenia. How often did you go to school? Like, let's say in a calendar year.
Not much. It's interesting, Frankie. I started skipping school in the first grade.
Oh, really?
And yes. And the reason for that is because I could hear the universe calling me. And my focus was not so much on the lessons that most students learn in the classroom. My lesson was from the universe. The call was incredibly strong. And combined with that was the chaos of my home life. And the combination of the chaos and the call from the universe, I could not focus. I could not sit in school. It was not within me.
And what was the universe saying?
The universe was calling me, was telling me about love, was telling me about perfection, genius, excellence, was telling me about how things work, how people work, how to survive, how to be loving, how to help my mother. I could not attend to geography, mathematics, science. It just didn't resonate with me, and it wasn't what I came here to learn.
Right. But at some point, you had to go to school and do some things.
I did.
That's part of the socialization
Yes.
of all of us. Now, when did you go to live at a group home the first time?
Well, what happened was after my grandfather passed away and our family disbanded, I was living with my grandmother for a short time. My mother, I was living with my mother, and she decided that she was going to give that apartment up and move me and her in with my grandmother where my sister was living. Mm-hmm. And one day I came home from school and my mother had vanished. She had just picked up and left. And so I was there with my grandmother and my sister. That was a very chaotic situation. My grandmother was under a lot of stress. She ran her own business, and I could feel that living there was not healthy. So I reached out to a teacher who wanted to take me in as an adoption situation. Then one thing led to another, where I became a ward of the court. My grandmother put me in a hospital, and that began the process of finding Pilot House, which was a group home for teenagers that were struggling.
And why would your grandmother put you in the hospital for what?
Well, I was taking a lot of drugs at the time.
Okay.
I was really spiraling, and she really took me to psychiatrists and really wanted to help me, but nothing was working. It was my environment, and I had to leave it.
Did your grandmother ever think, like, oh no, here we go again, another child with schizophrenia or another mental health problem?
Yes, no question. I mean, my father was not a part of the picture, and she reached out to him and told him, your daughter is doing drugs. Please come help her. Well, he was a heavy alcoholic.
Oh,
and,
wow.
He could not help. And his distance was also another blessing in our life. If he had been present, I wouldn't be here today, to be honest. It was a double whammy. And so my grandmother put me in the hospital as an attempt to help me. And they could see, once I was in the hospital, the magnitude of the situation. I was then put in temporary lodging for children, which led me to Pilot House,
where you got the help that you really, the first, help that you really needed. There was some stability there for you.
Exactly. It was a loving environment. There was stability. There were boundaries. I was in a system, a family, so to speak, that was able to reach me, and I could reach them. And truly, to be honest with you, Frankie, when I lived in Pilot House, I was the counselor. It was quite an interesting situation where my intelligence had an opportunity at some point to help those that I lived with. It was interesting, but it was a situation that helped me tremendously, and it showed me what was possible when I had a chance.
Right. And, kudos to your grandmother, because it was not easy for her. Like you said, what business did she run?
Yeah, you're so right. She had her own business. It was a nurse's registry, and it was in her name, Rose London Registry in Kansas City. And she provided private duty nursing for patients in the community.
Good for her. Wow.
Yes.
Big job.
She was a pioneer.
She was.
She was.
And I say kudos to her for she paid for your mother's rent. I mean,
Yes.
She was always there for her daughter.
She was.
And she looked out for her and for you kids. And
Yes.
maybe you guys didn't get along, but she had, there was something there for her too. And I that was pretty cool. Her
You're
strong
absolutely
woman,
right.
a very strong woman, because it's not easy, as you know. I mean, you lived with it.
Exactly, Frankie. Thank you so much for saying that, because my grandmother was the glue. She was the stable pillar, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So after you got out of Pilot House, how old were you
Yes.
the first time?
I was 18 when I left Pilot House.
Oh,
I lived
18.
there. Yes, I lived there just under 4 years.
Wow. And
Yeah.
you held a part-time job while you were there?
I held a part-time job. I completed my education. I graduated from high school, which was truly a miracle. And I got straight A's my senior year. That was a miracle. And I also received an award for a summer job that I was part of, the CETA program back in those days. It helped youth have summer jobs. And I was voted outstanding worker out of 300 workers. And
Wow.
It was just an example of what I was capable of when I had support. And, the Pilot House was a gift in my life. To this day, appreciation lives within my heart for Pilot House. And that's one of the reasons I bring my story forward, is to provide that kind of intervention for those who need it. I'm incredibly grateful, and it was a turning point.
So after you left, though, you found drugs again.
I did. The boundaries of Pilot House were incredible, but it didn't live within me when I left. They weren't stable. I went to Kansas University, and I struggled from day one. It was a lot to ask for me to go into an environment where
Freedom.
The freedom of life was huge, and I didn't have experience there, and I really floundered. Yeah.
So where did that drug journey take you?
So I was at Kansas University for about 3 years, and my younger brother, not that he's younger than me, but my younger brother intervened. He came and got me after my third year at Kansas University. I went into a drug treatment facility in Independence, Missouri. And it was, I started in that drug treatment center, and I had to go back 2 or 3 times to become stable without drugs and alcohol. But it was a journey. And it wasn't until I met Denise, my psychologist, at age 26, that I really started to have a true chance.
Now, you were working full time. You had 2 jobs, I think, didn't you?
Yes.
You worked at the restaurant, and
Yes.
you worked for your grandmother.
Yes.
So it wasn't, you were not lazy in any way. Like you really,
Yes.
the real you was trying to shine forth despite all these odds. And so how were you smart? I'm going to say this. How are you smart enough to say, you know what, I really need help. I still really need help. I don't want this to be my life.
Exactly, Frankie. My connection with the universe was profound. It is profound. And I had this life force within me that was communicating what I was capable of. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I needed help. If I didn't get it, I wasn't going to make it. And so I had this inner knowing of what I came to Earth to do. And when I found Denise Gullidge, my psychologist at age 26, I had been through counselor after counselor after psychiatrist after psychiatrist. I was not mentally ill. It was just my circumstances were so challenging that I needed somebody to help me negotiate.
Right.
Yes.
And you said in the book, and I get this,
Yes.
I get this so well, that you are smarter than most of them.
Yes.
And I was in a really severe accident, and I had, for the insurance, I had to go visit all these psychologists and psychiatrists. And it was funny because, like yourself, they started to tell me their problems. And that's who I am. But it was very funny that you said that. And when you met Denise, you said, I hope you're smart.
Exactly.
You're smarter than me. Yeah,
yes.
I get that. It's so funny.
Yes, that began our relationship. And I'm so glad you understand that, because sadly, many people of our situation, you and I, Frankie, many people of our situation, we are incredibly bright. Mm-hmm. We are incredibly bright. And those who are there to help us, they mean well, but they can't see what we know. And sadly, we have to prove over and over and over our ability to those who truly do not recognize what we have inside. And
well,
so
one thing that...
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Finish your statement. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say it beats you down after a while, mm-hmm. and you wonder, okay, maybe it's just not worth it.
Well, Denise was your last straw. You said, if this doesn't work, that's it. Done.
Yes.
So thank God she worked.
Yes. I had returned to school to Kansas University. I was stable enough working my 2 jobs. I worked for my grandmother. I worked in the restaurant business. I had returned to school. I was excited about that. I was taking a human sexuality class, and we were asked to write in our journals about some things that were bothering us. And I asked my instructor, do you know somebody who I can talk to? At the time, I was going to counseling at the university. I could tell it wasn't fulfilling my needs. My instructor gave me the name, and that was the beginning of a tremendous relationship.
How many years were you in counseling with Denise? I know you've been friends forever, but
yes. Yes, our relationship continues to this day, and it's been over 25 years.
Wow. We're going to go to a break in a minute. I just want to tell the listening audience that there's a few secrets still that we haven't told you about Kelly. And so if you better stick around so that you're going to hear and find out what else she had to deal with, because it was quite, your plate was full. Let's put it that way. Your plate was very full. And, let's congratulate Denise for being there for you for all of these years, 25 years.
That's right. Don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
Welcome to Geraldine Tegelov Live, the show that shares with you the secrets of redefining, reinventing, and rebuilding your life. Having pulled herself from the rubble of financial ruin and having gone on to create a highly successful career, Geraldine has become an expert in the art of transformation. She believes that it doesn't matter where you are right now, how overwhelmed you feel, or how impossible the task of turning your life around may seem. You can do it. Stay tuned as metaphysician, international best-selling author, and intuitive Geraldine Tegelov gives you the inner understanding and the outer practical how-to to create your amazing life. Gain a fresh perspective on how to redefine, reinvent, and rebuild your life. Join Geraldine Tegelov live every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the TogiNet Radio Network. It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
February is American Heart Month, and this month is dedicated to raising awareness about heart disease and increasing knowledge about prevention. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in the United States. The American Heart Association stresses that physical activity will make you feel better, and your health depends on it. They say that by exercising for as little as 30 minutes a day, you can reduce your risk of heart disease. Studies show that for every hour of walking, you may increase your life expectancy by 2 hours. That is great news. It's so easy to get out there and get moving. Anyone can do it, regardless of your fitness level. Get your doctor's approval, then put your walking shoes on and start walking. Not only are you working on preventing heart disease, you are increasing your life expectancy. I'm Annette Hammond. Visit our website at AnnetteHammond.com.
And we're back with Kelly F. Holland. She's the author of Primary Gift. And I just want to say that I did mention before we went to break that, there's a few things that you still don't know about Kelly. There's probably a whole lifetime of things that you don't know about Kelly. But one thing that struck me was how fortunate, really, truly fortunate you were to find Denise. And maybe it's a little bit of snobbery on my part, because I'm thinking in the Midwest, she found this counselor who was so amazingly great. Yes. But you probably didn't know, but she found out rather quickly, I guess, that you suffered from, dissociative disorder. Yes. And so I guess you did parts therapy or, therapy to bring everything back together, and become, the whole you. And that's how you really survived. And you found the incident when it happened, when you disassociated. Yeah. Do you remember?
Yes, it was in my childhood, when my mother, one of my grandmother's attempts to help my mother, she was very violent at the time, and my grandmother came in and had my mother taken away in an ambulance to the psychiatric unit. And it was a very traumatic night, and that it was that night that the trauma was overwhelming, and I literally became fragmented in my person. It was, and what I understand today, Frankie, is that when energy splits, it's because the weight is so heavy, right, that the energy splits to support the weight. Yes. Yeah. And so, yes.
Did any of your other siblings have drug or alcohol issues?
Not at that time. Okay. Not at that time. There have been issues currently that one of my siblings is really, really struggling. And I pray for my sibling. And I'm hopeful that this will have a good outcome.
Good. That's great.
Yes.
The other thing that we found out was, and gee, wouldn't it have been nice to know, that you also had ADD. And that's what made school so difficult for you.
Yes. Yes. Frankie, when I was going to school back in the 60s and the 70s, ADHD was not the topic or what is known about it today. And right. it was really considered, you were a problem child. What's wrong with you? Why can't you learn? And I just did not have the tools available to me. And I couldn't focus. I couldn't read. It was very hard for me, nor was I interested. That's what made it even harder.
Yeah, because you couldn't concentrate.
I couldn't concentrate. I wasn't interested. I only wanted to learn about the universe, how things worked in that regard. And so, yes. So as far as ADHD, yes, I was finally diagnosed, and that's what's helped me to become the professional that I am today.
Right, because it's a lot easier once you understand how you can learn. And you did, from the rest of your life on forward, you did amazingly well. Yes. So when you talk about the universe, was there religion in your household at all? I know we're talking about spirituality, but was there religion? Right.
There was religion in my household. I was raised Jewish, and really? Yes, I was raised Jewish. Conservative Judaism, and my grandmother, she was a very religious, and that trickled down into my family. It was pervasive, and that's how we grew up. But today I'm not a religious person. I never really have been. I'm very spiritual. Very spiritual, yes.
And so you've always had this relationship with spirit, yes. And you knew what you were here to do, and yes. It wasn't to be a physiotherapist necessarily. But let's move on. So we have Denise, and we're grateful for her. And you were 26 years old when you met her. And yes. What was the next milestone? You went back to college.
Yes.
Yeah, you went to college.
Yeah, so the next milestone was once I got into therapy with Denise, I actually dropped out of college at that time because the work that Denise and I had to do was huge. Mm-hmm. And so I had to step out of school so I could focus on my therapy. So then within the first 5 years of working with Denise, I re-entered school, and I got out of the restaurant business, and I started working for a hospital in Kansas City, a very simple job working in patient transportation. And that was the beginning of my foot into the door of medicine. And so my combination of working with Denise, staying in school, I finally graduated with my undergraduate degree. It was a general studies degree, and that happened in 1998. I began working with Denise in 1989.
Wow.
So yes, so after 10 years ultimately of working with Denise, I finally graduated with my undergraduate degree, and then I was accepted into physical therapy school 3 years later.
And I know that you said that you were sorry that when you were at college that you really didn't have a graduating class that you went through because you're so much older than everybody else.
Yes, it was very difficult. I didn't feel a part of it.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
But when you graduated from physiotherapy school, you did.
I did. It was a program that I was a member of. I went through the entire program with my classmates, and I truly was a member. And it was an incredible accomplishment in so many ways to graduate with my master's in physical therapy. It was the evidence of what Denise and I had worked so hard, so long together to accomplish.
How often did you see Denise?
Usually once a week, sometimes twice a week, but usually once a week.
For like an hour or so?
For an hour. For 50 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so one person that really inspired you in and above Denise was Celine Dion. So tell us that story, how Celine became motivation for you to strive for excellence.
Oh, Frankie, up until that point, Denise and I had been working week by week, month by month, year by year. And I was at a point where I was feeling better about things. I had started dating, and the beautiful man that I was dating, Randy, his father invited us to a Celine Dion concert. And I love Celine's music. I had never seen her before. I knew of her. When we went to her show that night in Kansas City, March 29th, 1999, as I write in my book, within the first 5 minutes of the show, my legs were taken out from underneath me. The excellence that is her performance, who she is, her energy, her inspiration, it changed me. I saw a level of excellence I had never seen before. And she changed me. That night I walked out of her show wanting to share with the world this excellence that I saw in Celine, but knowing that it lives in each one of us. I knew in my heart that what I saw in Celine was something that permeates all of us. It's just a matter of how much we recognize it.
She's been working since she was 13 years old.
Yes.
Quite a journey. And I met her. With my daughter. Yeah, she used to have a chain of restaurants called Nichols. And she came in with a helicopter, her and Renee. And, on stage, she's larger than life, but in person, she's very petite and just like a little bird. She's so tiny. And she was there, and she wasn't allowed to speak because she was singing that night. And she had some laryngitis for a little bit. And so her husband wouldn't allow her to speak. But she nodded her head a lot, and she shook hands with everybody. And I got the signed autograph from her. But
oh, wow.
It was very exciting, to see her and meet her. And, you're right. Her work ethic is incredible. And, yeah, absolutely incredible.
Yes, I think that's the one thing, Frankie, is her work ethic. Mm-hmm. It is unprecedented. And that's what really speaks to me is how she really respects her gift. Mm-hmm. She respects her gift and her work ethic to be her best. And, now that her husband has passed on, I think we're going to see the best of her, how she comes through this humongous challenge. And I think it's going to lift her to a level that she otherwise wouldn't have obtained. To be honest. Well,
our hearts do go out to her because her brother and her husband, passing within days of each other. It's very, very sad. Very sad. So after you came home from this concert, you dedicated yourself to this idea of excellence and that you wanted to be world class. And so not only did you graduate from your physiotherapy program, but you did you go to New Zealand to take extra?
Well, I was accepted into the diplomate program. It's a specialty within the physical therapy profession. And so part of the program was online learning. It was distance learning from the University of New Zealand. So I did distance learning through the University of New Zealand with 18 other students across the world. And that was one component. The other component was to do a clinical residency. There were 3 different locations around the world, and I did mine in Austin, Texas.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
And what you learned there, though, was something that not very many people knew, right?
That's correct.
So what was that exactly?
Well, specifically, the McKinsey approach, or mechanical diagnosis and therapy, is a system that Robin McKinsey, a physiotherapist from New Zealand, really happened upon in the late 1950s. He recognized that when patients are in certain positions, their pain gets better. When he moves the patient in a certain way, the pain centralizes or comes back to the midline. So Robin really was instrumental in recognizing how patient position or direction of movement really influences pain. And he went on to develop mechanical diagnosis and therapy. He went on to develop the Institute of Mechanical Diagnosis. And so within the physical therapy profession, it has now become a specialty. It's world class. It's used all over the world. Canada is no exception. And it really is the cream of the crop when it comes to spine care and really joint pain throughout the body. And those who train within this system that Robin created, there's tiering. So you're certified, then you're diplomate, then you become fellow, and then faculty. So my current level is diplomate, which is an incredibly, it's a very high level of training.
Wow. You specialize in the spine. Is that correct?
That's correct. I specialize mostly in mechanical therapy, but it's known as a specialty of the spine.
Excellent.
Wow. Yes, if that makes, yes. Mm-hmm.
So let's think back to that young girl, who didn't go to school, who couldn't learn, who was, doing drugs, who was stealing, who was doing all kinds of stuff. What a journey.
It has been a journey.
It was a real journey. And we're going to go to break very soon. And when we come back, we're going to tell people just how far you got. Because it really is amazing. I think, what you accomplished is absolutely a testament to just determination and courage. It really is. We're going to come right back. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you, Frankie.
That's right. Don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Be here for Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer, Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com. Tricia will dig deep into topics that matter most to women, inspiring women to make a change in their own lives and to make a difference in the world, and maybe even deep within their own hearts. Tricia is a wife, mom, speaker, family expert, and author of 24 books. For more information on Tricia and Living Inspired, go to her website, TriciaGoyer.com. That's TriciaGoyer.com. Tricia's vision is to be the voice of hope and possibility for women of all ages. Her intention is to serve ordinary women by encouraging extraordinary things with God's help. Tricia expresses real life, real hope for real women. Is there more living for you to do? Yes. Start living inspired. Living Inspired with Tricia Goyer. Thursday afternoons at 4, 3 p.m. Central on TogiNet.com.
This is the TogiNet Radio Network, broadcasting quality programming to the world.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors. All quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff. And find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
You know, I really appreciate you sticking around, and I know that Kelly does too, because she really has an inspirational story and a message for you. So thank you for doing that. When we left, I told you that we were going to, I'm going to share with you where Kelly actually got to. So not only did she graduate with her diploma in physiotherapy, not only did she take the McKenzie method and improve upon her future, but she became the director in the hospital. She became the director of physiotherapy in this hospital. And well, we didn't tell them that you had moved from Kansas. You moved to Arizona.
Yes, that's
to
correct.
Globe, Arizona.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so you moved from a mid-sized city to a little town. How was that?
Frankie, it was so interesting because I wanted to go where I could make a difference, and I moved to Globe, Arizona. I had actually interviewed in Hollywood, California.
Wow. On Rodeo Drive, no less, right?
Yep, on Rodeo Drive, and I felt so excited for the opportunity. But when I then went to Globe and interviewed for the physical therapy position, I could feel that was my next step. And I could feel that I really would make a difference in this community. And it was absolutely the right step. And what a journey it was.
And there was I'm going to backtrack here for a moment, because there was a moment, and it might have been, I can't remember, so you're going to have to help me. There was a moment when I think you went to a party or something and somebody offered you a joint, and you actually did it. You took a hit, and then it just didn't do it for you anymore. The kick was gone. So where was that? Was that in Globe?
Yes, it was Globe. And that was truly, truly a turning point in my life, and one where I recognized where I was in life and what my direction was. I had just moved to Globe in 2004, and somebody offered me some marijuana, and I took a little bit of it. And it was at that point that I realized I'm done. I've turned the corner. And
how amazing.
It was because my life at that point was better than anything that any drug could give me. And that is when I recognized that I was on my way, that I was completely in the line of my life.
Let's make sure that folks know how to reach you. Can you give out your website, please?
Yes, my website is Kelly, F as in Frank, Holland.com.
Awesome. I want to make sure we get that in there.
Thank you.
So you how many years you were at that hospital for? How many years? 8 years?
2004. I was there 9 years.
9 years.
Yes.
And you ran the program, and then at the end of that, you kind of thought, okay, I've been there, done that. It's time to try something new.
Yeah. What was interesting is that I started to write my book. And yes, and during that process when I was writing my book, I really wanted to focus my time and my energy on completing it. And I could feel that my days in Globe were coming to an end. The energy, so to speak, had left. And yes, and I could tell that it was important for me to move on. So I resigned as director in, I think it was 2012. And in 2013, I moved to Sierra Vista, Arizona, where I lived for 2 years. And then eventually I moved to Phoenix.
And so what are you doing in Phoenix today? What's Kelly Holland doing?
Well, interestingly enough, I'm working as a physical therapist in Chandler, Arizona. I'm a specialist, and I'm excited to tell people about that. I'm the only diplomate in the state of Arizona in the McKenzie method, and I provide specialty services for 360 physical therapy in Chandler, Arizona, and I've returned to school to complete my doctorate. So,
wow.
Yes, so I'm now in school, and I'm completing my doctorate in physical therapy.
How amazing is that? I mean, come on, people, look where she came from. Look at this journey, this life journey of yours. All these twists and turns. How amazing. Your PhD, that's exciting. How close are you?
Well, yeah, it's a couple years away. I just started in January of this year. So I'm downsizing the amount of hours that I spend in the clinic so I can complete this education. And I also really want to to follow the path of inspirational speaking and reaching out to people who want to hear my message and who want to help better their lives in whatever way that they feel that they can. I'm here to make a difference.
And we hear that.
Yes.
And there's nothing better than listening to somebody who has been through it. A talking head is one thing, but nothing, there's just no substitution for experience.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw, there's a new show on TV where these people are trying to lose weight. And so they go to these experts, and the expert actually gains weight and then loses weight with them, so that because they've never had to lose weight. And so they don't understand the process and what it feels like. And it's not good for them, but they're doing it. And it's the same thing, for you. You've gone through so much that the ability to speak to somebody who's been on drugs, the ability to speak to somebody whose family suffers with, a family member with schizophrenia, you understand it. You've lived it.
I have.
Whatever advice you have for them, whatever inspirational comments you have for them, they come from a real place.
Yes,
not just book learning.
It's so true, Frankie. And on my website, I share topics that I'm going to be speaking about in the future. And I'll address all of those, from schizophrenia to attention deficit to the kindness of the universe, to living your best life, role models who enter our life, how they help us to become our best. I'll talk about medicine, wellness, how the universe assists us in all of those categories. And I'm just thrilled to offer that opportunity to others.
Now, there's so many people, Kelly, who really feel that loving oneself is the most difficult thing to do.
Yes.
And I'm sure that was difficult for you. So how would you help somebody who is finding it difficult to find that love for themselves? And that includes getting the treatment that they need. And I mean, that's really the start of it. But just in general, so many people suffer with that.
They do. And Frankie, you have nailed it, because when a person can love themselves, then the world loves them. Mm-hmm. And so for me, Denise was that loving foundation that I could then grow. So what I recommend to others, find a person, find an organization, find something on the web, on the internet, that provides a loving source for you. Because when you listen to it over and over and over again, you are then able to tell yourself loving thoughts, such as, when I wake up in the morning, what I do is I say, "Good morning, sweetheart. Have a beautiful day." Every morning, "Good morning, sweetheart." So when you get in the habit of talking to yourself lovingly, and it's one sentence at a time, if all you can muster is one sentence a day, that sentence becomes a paragraph and then a page. And over time, you become so loving to yourself that the universe provides tremendous opportunities for others to love you. So I recommend.
I love that. That's great.
Frankie, it's so true. It is so true.
It is so true.
It is. And that's what Denise gave me, was the love that I could then give to myself.
So important. So important, because it's not dependent upon anybody but yourself.
Exactly.
We cannot depend on anybody but ourselves to love us and to give us that. We have to do it for ourselves, and then it comes, like you said. But if it's external and it's taken away, then where are you?
Exactly.
So you must be able to give it to yourself.
You must. It's an inside job. It's an inside job. And when it's an inside job, it's a real job. Mm-hmm. It's real, and it never goes away. People, if you depend on others to love you, they ultimately go away, and then where are you?
Right.
But if you love yourself, it's always there.
Like when your mom went away, and it's a scary situation. Your mom went away for a couple of years, didn't she?
Yes.
And you had no idea where she was. And of course, as a child, you feel abandoned. Your father left, your mother left.
Yes.
What's up with that? And in any situation, it would be extreme. But with you, especially, and your siblings, it's even more so. So at least you would, at this point in your life today, you would be able to not, feel the abandonment as much, because you love yourself.
And to see the perfection in what transpired.
Yeah. So we've got just a couple more minutes left in the show, believe it or not.
Yes.
But I see that Esther Hicks and Abraham and Jerry Hicks, they've influenced you. And I love Abraham. I think he's great. So tell me what it is and how you got when you first heard about them and how it's affected you.
Yes, the best teachers on our planet, Frankie, Abraham through Esther Hicks, and I was introduced to them through a one-day workshop through Hay House I think it was in Las Vegas. It was my first time being exposed to Abraham and their teachings. And then when I was up in Globe, our secretary brought me in some CDs because I had stepped away from their teachings. It just happened. And a secretary that was working in our clinic brought me a CD, and I have not missed a day ever since. I believe that was in 2008. And,
oh, wow.
Yes, and they teach the laws of the universe, and they teach that what you give your attention to grows, and it is incredibly powerful, incredibly. And I, as much as Celine and Denise and my mother have been an influence in my life, they have been just as powerful.
And it is so true, because good or bad, whatever you give your attention to grows.
It's so true.
So pay attention to the good instead of the bad.
Exactly. Every situation provides opportunity for goodness if you're determined to see it. That's the key.
I mean, Abraham talks about choice, and in every situation we have a choice, and always choose the higher choice, the one that makes you feel better.
Yes.
And that's lessons for a great life right there.
It is, and it takes practice. It's one thought at a time, one day at a time, looking for the good.
And so, Kelly, your book, again, it's Kelly F. Holland that we've been speaking to. Her book is called Primary Gift. Your primary gift was Denise.
Yes.
And how would you tell people to figure out their primary gift? We've got a minute left.
Primary gift? Yes. I mean, when you ask them the question, what's the primary gift of your life? Most people they'll go right to it because it lives in your heart. And so it may be a person, it may be a situation. Everybody knows what the primary gift of their life is. So I would say get in touch with your heart, and it'll take just a minute for it to come forward. Or if you struggle, don't struggle. It'll come, if that makes sense.
Right. For sure it'll come.
Yes.
Well, you have been a real gift to us today, and I really want to thank you so much for your courage and your honesty to be you and to share all of you with us, because it really does take a lot of courage. Thank you, Kelly.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Frankie, for having me.
And thank you, everybody out there who's listening and downloading. We do appreciate that, and we'll be back again next week with another Mission Unstoppable. Take care.
When the chips were down, they didn't stop. Stories of people who, when the odds were against them, turned defeat into victory. You've been listening to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. See you next time, and always remember,
Don't stop.